Nigeria, a nation brimming with hope, yet weighed down by decades of political turbulence. A country blessed with abundant natural resources, yet perpetually struggling to manifest its potential on the global stage. Too often, Nigerians have woken up to the revelation that money meant for schools, hospitals, roads, and growth infrastructure have simply vanished, embezzled by people put in power to serve the people. This is not a new phenomenon. It is a tale as old as the country itself. The most daring of these embezzlement scandals continues to shake the country to this day, and that is the one perpetrated by none other than General Sani Abacha. Sani Abacha was one man, a military ruler whose iron-fisted regime governed Nigeria from 1993 until his sudden death in 1998. In those 5 years, he oversaw corruption on a scale which has never been seen before in the history of Nigeria or ever since. But how did this happen? How much was really looted? And where did all the money go? Stay with us as we travel back in time to the height of Abacha's regime to follow the money and uncover how successive Nigerian administrations have tried and sometimes failed to recover these stolen funds. Nigeria gained independence in 1960 with high hopes, buoyed by rich cultural heritage and newly discovered oil reserves in the Niger Delta. Citizens were optimistic about the years to come. However, by the early 1980s, the country had experienced a civil war and several military coups and was struggling with economic mismanagement. Fast forward to the early 1990s, and the political climate was still volatile. A highly anticipated presidential election in 1993, widely considered the freest and fairest in Nigeria's history, was abruptly annulled by the military ruler at the time, General Ibrahim Babangida. Protests broke out, civil unrest intensified, and in this chaos, Babangida steps down, handing over an interim government to Ernest Shonekan. Within 3 months after the interim government took over, General Sani Abacha staged a coup to become the nation's new leader. Unlike his predecessors, who often portrayed themselves as reluctant rulers, Abacha didn't pretend. He was firm, austere, and rarely smiled in public. He reigned with an iron fist, dissolving democratic institutions and quashing dissenting voices. Critics and activists were imprisoned, newspapers were shut down, and the media faced strict censorship. But on the economic front, his regime claimed it aimed to restore order and set Nigeria on a path to stability. Some of his supporters saw him as a necessary strongman, someone who could enforce discipline in a chaotic political landscape. Yet, beneath the surface, a different narrative was forming. Whispers of billions of dollars missing from government accounts started to circulate. Over time, these whispers grew louder, but it was not until after Abacha's sudden death in 1998 that the magnitude of his corruption began to surface. Within days, the transitional government of General Abdulsalami Abubakar launched a cursory review of government finances. What emerged was a puzzle of dubious contracts, missing funds, and hidden offshore accounts. Internal and external pressure mounted rapidly, urging Nigeria to trace and recoup the looted money. Abacha's family initially denied the allegations, insisting the dictator had not stolen public funds. Some supporters claimed he was the victim of political vindictiveness, targeted by enemies seeking to tarnish his legacy. However, as global financial institutions began cooperating, evidence of sizable foreign deposits in the Abacha name or linked to his associates became undeniable. One of the most bewildering aspects of the Abacha scandal is how methodical and audacious the looting appears to have been. Investigators who examined the aftermath describe a well-oiled machine involving high-ranking officials, foreign banks, and sometimes even legitimate-sounding state contracts. Here's a common blueprint. Abacha or his close associates would issue a letter to the Central Bank of Nigeria citing national security, emergencies, or special projects that required immediate cash. In a climate of fear and unquestioned authority, the CBN often complied without asking too many questions. These funds will then be funneled into shell corporations set up for supposed government projects like road constructions or defense procurement. These companies existed mostly on paper, with little to no actual business operations. Once the money reached these shell entities, it was swiftly wired to overseas accounts in financial havens such as Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Luxembourg. And Abacha's family members and trusted cronies would be listed as beneficiaries. Because Abacha's regime had tight control over the press and the judiciary, there was negligible oversight. Officials could procure tens of millions of dollars with a single letter, signed and stamped with a dictator's seal, leaving a paper trail only recognized in retrospect. By the late 1990s, it was clear that enormous sums had bypassed the federal budget. Switzerland became a notable focus for investigators, as it was a favored haven due to its historic banking secrecy laws. In some cases, money was traced to European real estate, lavish lifestyle purchases, and personal investments. But the exact scope of the theft remained elusive, fueling speculation that the disclosed amount might only scratch the surface of what was truly taken. So, how much did Sani Abacha actually steal? That question has fueled countless debates, forming the crux of numerous investigative reports, government probes, and media exposés. Over the years, figures have wavered, sometimes wildly, depending on the source. Number 1. Initial government inquiries. When Sani Abacha died suddenly in 1998, the transitional government began uncovering hidden accounts. Early estimates hovered around $2 billion to $3 billion, a sum that already alarmed the international community. Number 2. Obasanjo's presidential probe from 1999 to 2007. During President Olusegun Obasanjo's tenure, he launched a deeper investigation into military-era corruption. New documents indicated the loot might be $4 billion or more. In 2002, Swiss authorities agreed to return hundreds of millions of dollars, lending credibility to these higher estimates. Number 3. Media and watchdog groups. Various international outlets and anti-corruption organizations like Transparency International speculated the figures could reach $5 billion or even $5.5 billion. Each newly discovered offshore account or hidden asset added to the suspicion that the amount may be more. It is important to recognize that there isn't a universally agreed upon total. Different investigations reveal different pieces of the puzzle, and in many cases, offshore secrecy laws prevent complete transparency. Some accounts get uncovered, but others remain hidden behind shell corporations and nominee directors. Regardless of the exact sum, it's undeniable that the amount is staggering for a developing nation. Nigerians can only imagine the possibilities if those billions had been channeled into infrastructure, education, or healthcare. That's part of the reason why the topic remains so controversial and emotionally charged for many Nigerians. Recovering stolen funds hidden in international accounts is no simple task. In the aftermath of Abacha's death, Nigerian authorities embarked on a sprawling global manhunt for the so-called Abacha loot. Here's where it gets complex and at times frustrating. Number 1. Switzerland. Due to Swiss banking secrecy laws, Nigeria faced an uphill battle. However, intense diplomatic pressure and mounting global outcry against money laundering eventually cracked open some vaults. By 2005, Swiss authorities had returned over $700 million to Nigeria. Additional rounds of repatriation followed in subsequent years, often accompanied by strict conditions that the funds be used for specific infrastructure, and social projects. Number 2. Liechtenstein and Luxembourg. These smaller but well-known financial hubs also housed significant Abacha-linked accounts. Lengthy legal proceedings ensued involving freezing of assets and negotiations for repatriation. In many instances, the processes dragged on for years due to appeals from holding banks and legal technicalities. Number 3. The United States and the United Kingdom. Some funds reportedly made their way into real estate holdings in the United States, luxury apartments in London, and business ventures scattered across both countries. The United States Department of Justice played a pivotal role by filing forfeiture actions against suspected Abacha assets. In one high-profile case, U.S. authorities seized hundreds of millions they believed were tied to the Abacha family, eventually coordinating with Nigerian officials for repatriation. Each repatriation deal became headline news in Nigeria, igniting debates about transparency and accountability. Critics questioned whether recovered funds truly went back to the public or simply disappeared again into the abyss of corruption. Governments and international organizations tried to implement monitoring mechanisms, but many Nigerians remain unconvinced. The complexity of global financial regulations, combined with the reluctance of certain institutions to disclose private account details, ensured that the trail of looted funds was never straightforward. In the wake of the Abacha scandal, global calls for fiscal transparency grew louder. Civil society groups demanded open budgeting processes, stronger parliamentary oversight, and whistleblower protections. Internationally, anti-money laundering frameworks tightened, forcing banks to adopt more robust know-your-customer protocols. Yet, the question remains whether these measures are enough to prevent another heist of similar proportions. If there is one takeaway from the Abacha saga, it is this: when governance breaks down and power operates without accountability, the door opens for monumental corruption. The truth is, we may never know the exact figures Abacha really stole. The conservative estimates place it around $2 to $3 billion, while others argue it could surpass $5 billion. A few claim it's even higher, locked away in undiscovered accounts under layers of corporate secrecy. For many Nigerians, the Abacha loot remains a national trauma, an enduring symbol of broken trust between leaders and the people they were meant to serve. Each time a new stash is uncovered or another court ruling orders repatriation, the country is forced to confront a painful past. But whether this will translate into lasting reforms is a question only time can answer. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more investigative documentaries like this. Thank you for watching.